So when I was setting the fatness parameter for this main rig, I made mention of the fact that I would not be using the skin cage approach for skinning this body. I will be relying on more traditional skinning methods. And the reason is because I'm very comfortable with the dual quaternion skinning option, and it does a very good job of holding volume in my rigs when the character twists. And the skin cage that Advanced Skeleton uses for its automatic skinning is very powerful, and as a matter of fact, it does a magnificent job ensuring that your preliminary skinning is very good. But I think it uses classic linear method by default, and I don't know how to switch to make the skin cage utilize dual quaternion. So what I'm referring to are these two options in skinning. So if I go to bind skin options, I have classic linear, dual quaternion, and weighted blended, which allows you to use both. I want to start with dual quaternion, and this option 2 here for skinning in Advanced Skeleton, this skin cage option, which is the preferred method, I think starts with classic linear. I don't think there are any settings in here to make it start with dual quaternion. And that is one reason. The second is I have some really unique painting that I want to do, and there's really no point in skipping the meticulous process of doing the painting and relying on the skin cage. Now, the skin cage is very powerful in that it has its own tools to hold volume, but I have to admit those tools, which are called skin sliders, make for a very messy rig. Like if you get them in position and they're supposed to be holding volume where they're most needed, it is messy. There's joints sticking out of every parent joint all over the knees and everywhere, and it's doing it because it's attempting to give you good volume preservation and sliding. But it is a very bad place to start from, especially if you plan on using custom controls down the line. When you start using custom controls and you mix them in with all the skin sliders that the skin cage provides, it just makes for a really messy rig. So I will be using a traditional method to skin her body, but that will not be the case for her tail, her headphones, and her sunglasses. I will be using the skin cage. I think they should work fine with the skin cage's approach. I don't think it's very important that I use dual quaternion there. And another place that I will be using the skin cage is during the creation of her proxy mesh. Now, Advanced Skeleton allows you to create a proxy mesh with this cutout tool, and it's somewhere here. It's called Skin Cutup. And what it does is that it takes whichever mesh you selected and it cuts it up to create a proxy mesh that you can switch to. This will be very important for this rig because you can see how dense it is, and I want to be able to switch to a proxy rig if there's any issues with chugging in the viewport. I doubt there will be, but still, it's nice to be able to have a proxy mesh to switch back and forth between. The old rig had a very cool proxy mesh. So this is what my proxy mesh looked like on her old rig. I just used some very simple geometry. If I select my main root controller, it's over here. It's the head LOD and body LOD. So if I switch to proxy, then I have this really simple proxy over here. Let me hide my leggings. So you can see it's just very simple geometry. And I have one for the head too, because the head was causing a lot of crashes sometimes. So these are the two proxies. All right, the jacket and the jean shorts, just to show. So some really simple stuff. It really works well. And we're going to create a similar thing, but this time with everything, with the proxy clothing and the shoes. But what I don't want to do is cut this up to create my proxy mesh. This is a very dense mesh, and as I mentioned, if I show poly count, it's 250,000. So I don't want to cut this to create my proxy mesh. So what I'm going to do is go back into ZBrush and grab subdivision level 1 of this character, my original subdivision of her, and I'm going to send this to Maya. I need this because it has the new leg pose. So I'll send this to Maya and I'll cut this up to create her cutout mesh. So I will export it out of here as an object format and drag it into my Maya scene. It should be fine as far as cleanup is concerned, because that's what the cleanup tool does anyway. It brings in OBJs that have all the information stripped, so I won't have to run another cleanup. So I'm going to bring it in here to create the cutout mesh for the body, and then I'm going to use these proxies that I talked about creating in one of the, I think the third or fourth video, and they're also going to get cut up so I can have a cutout version of them. It's going to be very important so that when I'm playing with this rig and I'm doing a foot roll, since none of the clothing are in here, and specifically since the sneaker isn't in here, it'd be nice to be doing a foot roll and actually have a mesh that gives me an estimation of where the sneaker is going to be. All right, so before we proceed with this process of using the cutout feature to create our proxy mesh, I want to show you something very cool that is going to work out well for this course. Previously, you saw me go through this issue of how offset parent matrix produces issues for our numbered labeling when it's on. It doesn't create the complete IK-FK chain. It stops in the middle when you have offset parent matrix on. So here I've created an example with a mesh, and that has an IK-FK chain that I was able to use the numbered IK label for. And obviously I was able to do this because I had offset parent matrix off. Now let's go down to the cutout section and let me show you how it works and something cool. So if I select my mesh, this cutout feature is going to make cutouts based off of the skin weights. So if I wanted to go ahead and proceed and do this cutout, I would select the mesh, and if I go create cutout, it has created my cutouts for me. If I had my original geometry, this is the cutout geometry, and if I'm to move my rig or move the controls of my rig, you should see the cutout geometry reacting correctly. Let me go into FK mode, show it doing its thing. So it's working as expected. And the way it's resolving this, let's take a look at it. If I drill down with the F key to this cutout geometry and I open it up, you will see that it has a parent and a scale constraint for each one. Each one has a parent constraint and a scale constraint that confines it to its respective joint. And this is what it's going to do with all of them. And this is happening because if I scroll up, I still had offset parent matrix off. Now I only needed it off because I was having issues with the numbered IK label, but I don't have to have it off for the other advanced skeleton operations. And this is important because this is a lot of constraints. And with as many cutouts as I'm going to have for the main rig, that's going to be 2 of these constraints for every piece of geometry. With the introduction of the offset parent matrix nodes and just that feature, it's best to use that for constraining every opportunity you get. So let's take a look at what it does if I was to try to create these cutouts with offset parent matrix on. So if I go up here and I turn offset parent matrix on and I select my original geometry, this is a new scene, and I go create the cutout, create. Now if I unreference it and select it, let me hide the main mesh, but if I now select these cutouts and I drill down, you'll notice there's nothing underneath it. It has no constraints or traditional constraints because it's using the offset parent matrix approach. Let's go take a look at the way it looks like. So if I go to Windows and I go to the node editor, and this is the cutout, and if I map it, what I have here is the traditional way in which matrix nodes are used to create constraints. And the way I understand this to work is that the necessity of this parent group is in that it allows you to wire the world inverse matrix of this cutout piece of geometry, which would be the same as the group housing it, into this node network. Without it, you would have had to, I think, pull the world inverse matrix from this cut up piece of geometry and pipe it in here, and then you end up with some cyclic thing. But yeah, I'm still trying to understand matrix nodes and how to use them to replace constraints, because I know it's a very important change to make. When we get to the tail, I'll be using a matrix connection to create a controller to control its space switching. So we'll talk about it when we get there. And again, this is really great because I had offset parent matrix. I had to have it off for the rig, the main rig. So that means my main rig is using a lot of constraints. So I don't want to tack on more, not 2 per cut up geometry. It's just too much. So if we can use offset parent matrix anywhere, I will do so. So let's get back to our main rig and get started with creating this proxy mesh with the cut up feature.